Hello, everybody. It's Steph Norbury here from the Amusement Network. And today I am joined by J-P Thompson. And I'm struggling to know exactly how to introduce you, JP, because you seem to wear a lot of hats. Can you explain to everybody what it is you do and who you represent?
Sure. Well, thank you very much for having me on, Steph. So maybe the best way to start is with my background. So I started to get into the industry as a table football tournament event organizer. So I started doing that like maybe 15 years ago. It started kind of like as a passion project. At the time, I was a suited and booted business analyst, which kind of like an Excel monkey, and I just happened to befriend the manager in a place called Cafe Kick, Bar Kick. So anybody who loves table football, the French table, Bonzini, will know that location. And I was just really a passionate player, so I just saw I saw a community there which needed a little bit of a leader to put a time, a date, an event, rankings, and then it went really well, and that's how I kind of like diverted into the industry and never looked back.
Excellent. So you used your Excel skills to organize the tournaments, and that's how you got started.
That's right.
Fantastic. So what do you do now?
As the business kind of like well, as the passion progressed, then it became obvious that organizing events on other people's machines didn't really kind of like pay the bills.
Mm.
So naturally, I started to become an operator, just operating table footballs in other venues across London. And then one thing led to another, and then I started getting into retro arcade games. Being a keen gamer myself, I just saw the opportunity, and then from the arcade machines, now I've moved into the realm of pool tables, air hockeys, Mario Kart racers, and I try and offer the whole package. But essentially, my heart and soul is in organizing events, and I'm very much a big fish in a small pond when it comes to the table football world, nationally and internationally.
Which is fantastic. And I think we can hear from your accent a very faint still, clue that you're French initially. That's where
Well,
you.
so I'm a bit of a funny one. I'm actually born in England, French, English father, French mother. But at the age of 8, they divorced, and I went to live with my mother in France for 10 years. So 5 years in Marseille, 5 years in Nantes. And then when it was time to go to uni, I studied at South Bank University, did a business degree, but somehow I kept the accent.
Great. Why do you think it is that table football in the UK has, I think it's fair to say, not had the same impact as it might have had in France when you were growing up? You must have seen them in every bar and cafe in France.
Absolutely. So I think that's a great question, and one which I've had many, many years to think about, and which we've debated many times with the National Federation, which is called the British Football Association. So I think that number one, which comes to mind, is there's a cultural factor. So,
Mm.
like for example, to take the European nations, which have got very, very strong table football following in terms of players and licensees and availability in venues, is going to be France and Germany.
Mm.
So the thing is, in France and Germany, they don't have pool, they don't have darts, they don't have snooker. So because culturally in the UK, those are already very strongly implanted, if you were to take the amount of pool tables that you've got in the UK and then compare that to the French table footballs in venues, then you would kind of like it would kind of like be on par.
Mm. Mm.
So I think that because there's England has already got such a the UK, sorry, has already got such a big cultural thing about pub games. I
Yes.
think that table football coming in, let's say on the third or fourth priority list, also meant that operators didn't really love and care the machines, because I mean that's one of the things when I started off placing my machines in other venues. I was just horrified to see some of them were badly assembled, so like
Right.
literally the rods are the wrong way, the rods are stiff, they're not maintained, they're pushed in a corner, there's no lighting. So like, for example, you would never dream of seeing a pool table without an overhead light.
No.
So I think that there's the cultural aspect that the operators didn't really understand table football. And I
Mm,
think that that's also linked to a very important fact that the UK doesn't have a table football manufacturer.
right.
So, like for example, in France, it's going to be a table called Bonzini. So anybody who's been in the French cafes with the red trim,
Mm,
there's just one table there. So nobody questions, oh, I like to play table football on that machine or that type of machine, because they're all very different. You can, yeah, for an outsider, it might sound ridiculous, but you can actually, some people are used to playing on the table so much that they won't touch another one because for them,
right.
it's not table football. Whereas an operator or anybody else in the industry, it's like it looks like a table football. It's a table football. End of story. So I think that there's that's also a major part, and also having a domestic manufacturer also enables them to sponsor the national federations. So, like
Mm,
for example, the tournaments which I used to go to religiously in France, which are called like World Cup series. And that's basically what made me quit my job. I'll never forget. I walked into a stadium. There was 100 table footballs all lined up, 500 participants from like 20 or 30 countries, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. I want to be part of it.
But the players, in your experience, the UK players, I'm sure enjoy playing just as much as they do in other countries.
Oh yes, no, absolutely. I mean, we've got a very hardcore Great Britain national team, which I've had the pleasure of coaching several times, especially the seniors. So without getting into too much detail, there's many different categories. So you've got the junior category, the women's category, the mixed category, seniors, open doubles, open singles. So that's the great thing about table football. It's very inclusive in terms
Mm,
of like the genders, people from very different backgrounds. There's no such thing as ageism. Like, you've got young
mm.
people who are passionate about the game who talk like they're best friends with somebody who's going to be like 30, 40 years older. Or you just wouldn't have that in any other forum. So that's the magic as well. So yeah, people do really love playing in the UK. I've been spearheading that as much as I can with the London Table Football Championship.
Mm,
So and I've just found that consistency in events with a clear ranking system, a fun event. So I'm kind of like before I was a little bit too hardcore, so now I'm going into softcore, and there's
right.
ways of doing that with the formats. So just before we started the interview, I was looking how many tickets were left for my draw your partner, which means that everybody it comes out of a hat and you get paired with somebody else, which is a really fun format. And then
Hmm.
it's a full house. And most of the season it has been a full house. So
Fantastic.
that's 40 players, and that's a lot of fun. It's a big social.
Mm,
However, in the event calendar, we've got open doubles, and these are people who train and practice together, and there the level is going to be much higher because
sure.
there's an expectation of winning but as an event organizer, there are tools available to kind of like go on the spectrum of how hardcore you want it to be, because the
Totally.
objective is to be inclusive.
Is to be inclusive and for people to get involved at any level, even if they don't really want to compete. I mean, there are very few pieces of equipment in a pub or a bar that has such a small footprint, but that you can get so many people round and have so much fun.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's one of the great things about table football, and that's something that I definitely always talk about when trying to find new venues. Because
Mm,
how can you entertain four people on such a small square footage?
yes.
It's kind of like, I mean, that's really what it's got going for it.
So, what kind of venues do you look for when you operate your table footballs and your retro arcade games, JP?
So I've kind of like been focused in the past very much in licensed premises, so pubs and bars. That's worked well for me in the past, but as time is moving on, I'm just feeling that higher footfall places like food courts are great because also it's going to be more inclusive of younger age people.
Hmm.
And specifically having two twin boys myself, which have just turned two, I'm kind of like looking at it now as the I want to be the introduction of kids playing table football, and then like that they can get into it because
Yeah.
the quality of the machines I really care about, and I want them to have a good experience. So instead of kind of like having like an adult fun target, I'm trying to go a little bit down the scale and
Yes, yeah,
engage
to
with the younger
bring
audience.
younger people in as well. I can understand that. Now, we first got talking because we were talking about cashless before we had this interview and payment options, because obviously that's a challenge, particularly in a location like a food court. Now, how have you got around that? What sort of payment options are you offering your players?
Initially, it was a bit of a challenge because the way I've got around cashless, especially in London, everything's moving cashless.
Mm.
The idea was to give the bar staff a terminal which they could take card payments with and then give tokens out.
Mhm.
But in practice, especially in the food court, I've purchased a PlaySafe token dispensing machine, and that's now available all during the day when there is footfall. It means that people can buy tokens, families can buy tokens without having to queue at the bar.
Yeah.
And I've seen that that has had some great results from the numbers. So
Mm.
my belief now is I need to focus more on that and get more sites with token dispensing machines because it just the point of sale now, having this point of sale just makes me realize that all the other ones were just very poor.
Right, right. And I think that's a good point to make, because tokens are often overlooked a little bit when we talk about cashless. And yet, they were there the whole way through. Tokens are nothing new, but they are extremely effective.
They are indeed, and then also a lot of people say to me, "Oh, why don't you do contactless on the machines themselves?" So I mean, I've got reservations for that in terms of there's not enough flexibility there for me. Because
Mm,
one of the things I like to do with the venues I work with is to give them the option of organizing their own events and
right.
then using the machines and then having the medium of tokens to do that just
Yeah.
works so much better than tapping cards all day long. So
Yes.
the tokens for me gave the flexibility, and then also maybe me being naive, but I find it nice it's tactile. You know, the
Yes.
children have the tokens, they've got them in their hands, they're looking at them, they're managing them. You know,
Mm.
I find it quite romantic to still be using tokens rather than, just tapping cards all over the place.
Certainly, certainly. No, I get that. It's part of the experience of a sort of coin or token operated machine, I think, of
Mm.
putting it in and then sort of pushing the button and getting your play. How does it work with the locations that you operate in? Do you work on a revenue share basis with them?
That's evolved enormously since COVID. So before it was kind of like plain old simple get the machine for free and then do a profit share on the £1 coins. I've got very few machines now which are on £1 coins,
Right,
and that's just going to continue to decrease because some venues, even though they do accept cash, they don't even do cashback.
right.
So and the amount of people now which will nip out to go to the cash point to withdraw money. I mean, it's just like there's only so much change that they hold.
Yes,
So that's becoming very difficult. But that was the business model with the £1 coins.
right.
And now with the tokens, it's a bit of a mixture in between keeping all the money, so there's no profit share at all for the
Mhm.
walk-ins. And then afterwards, as I mentioned, for the events, if they get some bookings, then we do a profit share on the booking itself.
Right. And to close, what are your plans for the future, JP? Because it sounds as though things are opening up for you and opportunities are appearing all the time.
They are indeed. So on the list of things I would like to do is number one, continue expanding on the food court idea and getting more sites. So moving away from numerous small sites and building them up into bigger sites. I
Right.
think this is a natural progression and also more manageable. So I would say that would be the first thing. Number two, I want to really finalize my concept with the foosball club, because
Mhm.
at the moment, this past year, I've been focusing a lot on the London Table Football Championship, getting the new website doing, acting very much as a community manager. But the whole point of that venue, which has got 4 table footballs and 3 arcade machines, and has got the whole setup to have a large screen TV so we can use the tournament software and PA system. This is ultimately designed for the corporates. And
Mm.
so I want to really kind of like get some packages across so they can have the tournament directors really focus on that promotion wise. So those are the first two things with my business, London Table Football Limited, and then London Games Room Limited, which I put on the back burner, just starting a family, is more sales. I had a great opportunity to work with a brewery called Voodoo Ranger, which is part of Four Pure, and
Mhm.
I made for them some custom cabinets where they put their own games inside. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity there because all of the arcade machines that we've got or which are in the market, they're running on old IP, old games.
Right.
And I'm a little bit disenchanted with the how the industry is going in terms of like all the machines are bigger, flashier, very much expensive. Whereas I think that, you know, that doesn't necessarily like that doesn't really work for a lot of cases unless you're in
Mm.
big family entertainment centers. So I think that there's an opportunity there for branded arcades with people's own games inside of them. And then afterwards, keep pushing the table football with branding and commercial opportunities and stuff like that.
Well, fantastic. I wish you the best of luck and
Thank you.
thank you very much.